Good morning. My task is simple. It is to say welcome and a few thank yous. It is a pleasure to have you all here. I'm Gary Parr. I'm the chairman of the New York Philharmonic, which is a real privilege for me. I want to welcome all the folks from media, from the music industry. You'll get to hear from a number of my friends who are actively involved in the New York Philharmonic about something very exciting, and that is, of course, Alan Gilbert's 5th season that will be coming, and that is what they'll be describing today. It's exciting that it's the first season conceived with Matthew Van Biesen, the new executive director, now not so new executive director of the Philharmonic. It is a collaboration of their putting something together, and it's, from my point of view, the most important part is it's Alan's vision continuing to grow, deepen, and really prove to all of us what he had in mind going back some number of years ago. So you're going to get to hear more of the particulars. We're happy for all of those who are able to join us here in the Jerome L. Green space at WQXR. And of course, WQXR is the radio station of the New York Philharmonic and a great partner for us throughout the year. I also want to welcome all of those who are listening to us at the webcast, especially those who are at work. I'm glad you found the time to take a break for us. A few more thanks, always to our board of directors at the Philharmonic who support the orchestra in so many ways. I always go out of my way to thank and always try to find words, which I'm always lacking, to show the appreciation for the musicians of the New York Philharmonic. They are the New York Philharmonic, and they are so extraordinary, so exceptional. They are, of course, at Avery Fisher Hall at this moment rehearsing, as they should be. And I want to thank, again, everybody for joining us. You're going to get to hear Alan momentarily, and Matthew, and so indeed I'll hand this off to Matthew Van Biesen and Alan Gilbert, our maestro. Thank you.
Thank you and good morning. I don't know if it's redundant for me to have two microphones here, so why don't I turn this off and set it down. Thank you. Well, good morning, and let me echo our chairman, Gary Parr's words of welcome to all of you and our appreciation for you being here with us this morning as we make this very exciting announcement about our 2013-14 season. I'm obviously joined here by our esteemed music director, Alan Gilbert. And before I turn it over to him, because he's really the guy that you've come here to hear from this morning, I just wanted to say a quick few words about my arrival here and what it's been like to work so far on the 2013-14 season and institutionally. It's been an incredible pleasure. I feel like already in a relatively short period of time, we're developing a great partnership, certainly between Alan and myself, between Alan and Gary Parr and myself, and throughout the organization. And as you work to put a season together, that partnership, along with the great artistic team that we have in Ed Yim, and the entire organization who put great events like this together today, it really is a team effort, and I'm sure that we'll talk more about that today. We were very pleased, of course, back in October to announce the contract extension of Alan as our music director through the 2016-2017 season, and we were so positive and so enthusiastic about what that said about the New York Philharmonic's future, our future with Alan, and really having this what we are calling a 5-year window of time to really further implement his artistic vision for the Philharmonic. So we were very excited about that in October, and we also have had a kind of a running dialogue, and I think you'll probably pick up on some of these themes today about what we envision the New York Philharmonic being, not only as an incredible orchestra, which they are, but as an ensemble, as a collaborator, as an institution. And we kept touching on some very important themes about the New York Philharmonic being an incredible resource, both artistically but collaboratively, sharing our expertise with partners here in New York and around the world. being a great collaborator, and I think you'll hear about some projects this morning that really, really demonstrate that. This orchestra is incredibly versatile in what it can do. And I added one thought of my own this morning, which is that, you know, we have some moments where we're just going to have fun this next year. And I think that's a really good and healthy thing for the Philharmonic. So having said that, it's my pleasure to be here and to now hand it over to Alan to begin to talk with all of you today about some of the highlights of the 2013-2014 season.
Thanks, Matthew and Gary, for those kind words. You know, a few things that I've heard just now really resonate with me. Sorry, I'm going to make this a little bit taller. Can you hear me now? Is this all right? Well, resonate may not be the right word, but when I hear that it's already my 5th season that we're announcing, it causes me to sort of recoil in not horror, but amazement, because the time has passed so quickly, and I've had such a good time doing this. And when I was preparing with Matthew and Ed Yim, who will join us, do you want to come up now, actually? No? Ed Yim, our artistic administrator. Welcome. It's been such a privilege to work with the team. Gary described the team. Matthew has just echoed that. It really is a collaborative effort, and I'm really lucky to be able to work with these people because the ideas are just swirling around. We have so much fun talking about what we're going to do, and really the discussions are totally based on the idea that the New York Philharmonic, the wonderful musicians that Gary mentioned, is an unbelievable resource for New York City and for the world, in fact. And we're very conscious, hopefully not in an overly lofty way, but we're very aware of what we can mean for the city. I grew up in New York as maybe not a typical New Yorker because my parents, my father's here, hi Dad, were musicians in the orchestra, and I had in a way an inside track, but I was very aware of what the New York Philharmonic can mean for music-loving New Yorkers. And to be in a position now in which I'm able to make decisions and set things in motion that really affect the cultural life of the city is just an amazing privilege. We talked about how to present this season. I think if you read through the admittedly extensive release, you'll see that there are many ideas. There's no way we can possibly get through them all. But one thing struck me as we were talking about how to put things together in understandable chunks, and that's that there is a real momentum and a real life that some of the initiatives we started some years ago, these things have taken on, in a way, not a life of their own, but there's an energy that we feel. For example, in the position when we started out, it seemed like a good idea. I think it's proven to be a good idea, but the artist in residence, for example, and we're going to announce who that is for next year momentarily, but the idea that the energy and the life that the people who have, the amazing musicians who have filled that position, bring to the orchestra, and how they can intersect and intertwine with our composer in residence. Chris Rouse is going to be continuing, and how Magnus Lindberg, who was Chris's predecessor, will be coming back, and his music will continue to inform the season in interesting ways. I guess it's only possible to talk about a long span when you've had a longer span of time to deal with. And now, after 5 years, what I tried to kick into motion from the beginning in a kind of naive, idealistic way, I can happily say that it's actually starting to really come to fruition. This idea that we're building a relationship with our audience and that we're trying to program in an hopefully inspired and sincere way in which pieces are combined on programs in one program or over a span of weeks or over an entire season, or now we can even talk about over multiple seasons in a way that creates a journey that our audience wants to share with us and follow us along with. So, you know, we're not going to be exhaustive in this discussion now, but we will talk about things that really turn us on and make us proud and excited. Ed, do you want to help us get going?
Can I just butt in one last time, and then I'll be quiet over here. I just wanted to say that, prior to my arrival here and after in coming here, looking at Alan's initial seasons and looking at the incredibly fresh perspective that he's brought to programming at the New York Philharmonic, both with regard to traditional symphonic repertoire, but to new works, to new music, thinking about what an orchestra can do and present a concert in a different way. And all of his seasons have really been punctuated brilliantly by these incredibly innovative and creative projects, starting with Ligeti's Le Grand Macabre in his first season, and this past season, the Philharmonic 360 project at the Park Avenue Armory. And then, of course, this year, we also punctuate the end of our season with a terrific, highly imaginative Stravinsky ballet music project with director Doug Fitch and principal ballerina from the New York City Ballet, Sarah Mearns. So that thinking has imbued that sense of adventure and exploration, and also really making it part of really who we are. And I think that is something that the New York Philharmonic institution can be incredibly proud of. And this is really all credit to you, Alan, and your vision for these incredibly expansive projects.
The thing, if I could just speak to that, is, sorry, Ed, we'll get to you. Promise.
I'm here as a resource.
No. Integral part of the team, truly. No, the thing is that when you have one such project, we've spoken about the Grand Macabre a number of times, obviously, but when you have one, it is just one thing. But now we're able to step back and look at the line and I think the constant stream of ideas that have come into our, just the way we do, it's become the way we do things. And it's no longer sort of points that are disconnected, but I really think that people deserve to expect this kind of imagination and, dare I say, innovation from the New York Philharmonic. It really is who we are, and it's not just, we can point not just to one or two things, but many things in which I think we're pushing the envelope of what orchestras can be in the 21st century.
A large part, though, of imagination and creativity is not just from within the organization, I think, but from an organization that is able to listen to what's going on around it and to appreciate collaborators throughout the city and people who are associated with the orchestra. I think it's wonderful, for example, that Alec Baldwin, who started as our radio, the voice of our radio broadcast, and then joined our board, was really, I'm not faintly praising you, Alec, by saying this whole idea of a film music week really kind of generated from Alec's interest in that area. And so part of what the three of us do is keep a very open radar to what's going on around us and what people whom we respect are interested in, and kind of take those ideas and try to work with them and make them part of who we are.
I mean, there's no way I could say strongly enough how much I believe what Ed has just said. It's possible sometimes for symphony orchestras to seem aloof or kind of ivory tower-ish. And the amazing thing about the New York Philharmonic is that I think we're able to continue to play the great masterpieces, the acknowledged masterpieces of the repertoire, as well as any orchestras playing these works in the world, really. But at the same time, we've become really responsive, really interactive, and hopefully really, really connected to the city that we serve.
Yeah. I mean, the opening weeks are a really great example of that, in a way, because we knew that Yo-Yo wanted to be, we wanted Yo-Yo to be our opening night soloist. It's been a while since he's been with us. And we had real discussions with him about what he should do on opening night. It is a gala and it is a festive occasion, but he wanted to do something beyond the expected Dvorak cello concerto, which might have been an obvious choice for an opening night. And we really evolved this idea of doing sort of a Latin-tinged evening, because the Osvaldo Golijov cello concerto was written for him. And then, in addition to that, we had the idea with him to create these orchestrations of these wonderful Piazzolla tangos from a series called the Series of the Angel, and I think that's going to be a really fun program.
Of course, anytime Yo-Yo shows up, it is a gala, and
it's true. He could play the phone book, and it would be a gala.
And for me, he really epitomizes what a classical musician can be and should be. He remains committed to the entire range of the repertoire for the cello, but he's really used his enthusiasm and imagination to work with contemporary composers, to find cross-cultural connections, to explore the Silk Road, this amazing project that I'm sure you've heard of, the Silk Road project. His curiosity knows no bounds, and he's done so much to show people how music is all connected, and I think this program is a little snapshot into that.
Yeah. What about your first Beethoven 9 with the orchestra, Alan?
Well, Beethoven 9, you know, what is there to say? It's, you know, it is, if not the iconic work, it's certainly one of the monuments of the repertoire. And the orchestra hasn't actually played it that recently. It's a beloved work, and I'm awed and daunted and thrilled at the prospect of performing it for the first time with the orchestra. But, you know, it was you, Ed, who brought this piece by Mark Anthony Turnage to my attention, and I think the idea of combining it, because it's sometimes we say it often, but it's easy to forget that the Beethoven 9, as established and as beloved and well known as it is, was a new work at one time. And why don't you explain the connection that we have? It's really exciting.
Well, it's reviving a over 100-year-old moment, actually, in a way, because the Royal Philharmonic Society of the United Kingdom of London is celebrating its bicentennial, and they commissioned Beethoven 9, which is, you know, quite remarkable, and they have one of the original manuscripts, and the New York Philharmonic gave the U.S. premiere of Beethoven 9. So in celebration of their bicentennial, they asked if we would be interested in co-commissioning this Turnage piece, which was to celebrate their anniversary. And also the idea that we're co-commissioning with the organization that originally commissioned Beethoven 9 to create this new work just seemed like a full circle, or the continuation of a cycle, I guess.
We'll hear from Christopher Rouse as well as Sean Shepard, another composer, shortly. But for me, it's fascinating to know how composers find their inspiration. And it's obviously not something that you can point to and say, that's what it was. But I know that Beethoven, and particularly Beethoven 9, has been an enormous inspiration for a lot of composers. And the idea of, in a way, challenging Mark Anthony Turnage, who's a wonderful composer, but giving him the opportunity and challenge of coming up with a work that is both informed by and related to Beethoven 9 really shows how the creative process goes on, and the compositional process is always continuing from way back when up until today.
And just as we're starting the season with this monumental Beethoven work, we're ending the season with a festival of Beethoven piano concertos complete, played by
Yefim Bronfman, who will be our artist in residence. This is a real joy for me to be able to announce, because he's obviously one of New York's most admired and loved pianists, certainly no stranger to the New York Philharmonic stage, and one of the people I enjoy collaborating with most. He is he's a pianistic genius, and giving him the chance to show multiple facets of his musical personality across the span of the season, I think is going to be a very exciting trip that we can take together. It was a special wish of his to do all 5 Beethoven piano concertos. I think any pianist would love to play the 5 Beethoven piano concertos with the New York Philharmonic. And for me, I remember hearing a few Beethoven piano concerto cycles in my life here and there. It's actually a really important way sometimes. Obviously, you hear Beethoven piano concertos singly all the time, but to hear one pianist and one orchestra traverse the 5 pieces together in a short span of time really tells you something not only about the artist, but about Beethoven and about these works. And Fima he's an obvious choice for me.
I think we have a video. Fima couldn't be with us today, but he wanted to say a few words about his year.
Well, first of all, it's an incredible honor and privilege to be selected by no more no less than New York Philharmonic to be artist in residence. That is honor beyond my imagination. It's an opportunity for me to play some new music and some old new music, like Lindbergh Piano Concerto, which we premiered last season and will be repeated again. I think it's turned out to be a really great piece by a great composer. I think it needs and deserves second hearing in the same city. Also in a context series, we'll be doing some new music of composers that wrote pieces for me or are in the process of being written. I also look forward to be playing Beethoven concertos with an orchestra. It was always a dream of mine to play Beethoven cycle with a major orchestra like New York Philharmonic. It's one of these cycles that it's a dream of every pianist. It's sort of it's a kind of a foundation for our existence. I'm so looking forward to the Triple Concerto, which is a wonderful piece. And I have to mention that my debut with New York Philharmonic in 1977 was that concerto, Triple Concerto, with Alexander Schneider conducting, and Shlomo Mintz playing violin, and Yo-Yo Ma playing cello. I believe all of us were making debut that day. And so that's how I came to New York Philharmonic with that concerto. So for me to come play with Glenn Dichteroff and Carter Bray will be definitely will be a highlight. You know, Tchaikovsky Piano Concerto No. 1 it's maybe one of the last concertos I've learned. And of course I fell in love with the piece. Why I didn't learn it before, I don't know. It's a unique piece which cannot be taken for granted. It's been remarkable to see how exciting the concerts are today, you know, how much the orchestra has evolved. It's alive and it's a very vital force in New York scene, New York Philharmonic, I think, more than ever. And I think Alan has something to do with that.
Thanks, Fima.
Yeah, no, it's nice, and I guess not surprising, but gratifying that we said some of the same things. If I could just point out the Lindbergh Piano Concerto that he played to great acclaim and with great success last year. We're playing that again, and we're taking it on our Asia tour. It went on our U.S. tour last year and was met with huge response and wonderful reaction from all audiences. And as he pointed out, it's really, really nice to be able to play new music again and again. I think that points to, well, our luck in having really fine composers who deliver great music to us, but our real commitment to make these works part of the repertoire and not just in a token way. Provide premiere opportunities and then just get on to the next one.
Right. But speaking of getting to new things, which hopefully we will play again and again, during the Beethoven Piano Concerto cycle, we're going to be premiering 2 new works by 2 young American composers, and we have one of them here with us today, so maybe we should talk a little bit about what the Kravis Prize has done for the New York Philharmonic and the composers that it's brought to our family.
Well, Henry and Mary José Kravis have been unbelievably generous in so many ways, but specifically with the gift that they gave that allowed us to create what we've decided to call the Kravis Prize last year, given for the first time to Henri Dutilleux. It's been really just astonishing, and I really take my hat off to these visionary philanthropists. The one component of the prize that was really a strong wish of Marie-Josée was not only to try to recognize a well-known established composer, but also to help younger composers who are closer to the beginning of their careers. And she helped us to establish this idea of devoting a portion of the prize to up-and-coming composers. And I think in a way that doesn't quite do Sean justice, because he's certainly there in some sense. But let's welcome Sean to the stage, and we can hear a little bit from him. Sean, we got to know Sean a few years ago on Contact, in which we premiered an amazing piece of his, and since then we've continued to work on ideas which will come to the New York Philharmonic stage in the future. But in the meantime, why don't you tell us what, well, if you could describe a little bit about what you've gotten from this opportunity and what it has meant for your writing.
Yeah, it feels like it was 2009 when my introduction to the Philharmonic, and it feels like ancient history already. I feel like I've grown in a lot of ways, specifically because of that experience. That was my first, well, it was my first real introduction to New York audiences in a way that was, I mean, it was an incredibly rich way to be presented, but it was a great experience. The difficulty of rising to the challenge was a big part of me understanding what it's really like to work at the highest level, because you know these amazing musicians are going to give it the most, you know, the New York Philharmonic attention, which is something that I don't think I'm ever going to forget now, working with any group around. But of course that really brings this homecoming back now as the huge honor of being the first Kravis composer in residence, the Kravis Young composer, following my great hero Henri Dutilleux, who just celebrated his 97th birthday yesterday.
Wow.
So happy birthday, Henri. And so in thinking of returning now for next season, well, I feel like it's time to be a big boy, and I feel like this is a pretty clear invitation to do it with my teacher, Stephen Stuckey, who has a close and warm relationship with the Philharmonic, likes to think of a concert as and he's not the only one, but he describes a concert as sort of a meal in courses. You know, when you have the entree, you have a little break, and then you have the main course. And I've been thinking about this concert as it's a little bit of a shepherd sandwich with Beethoven bread.
Did we freak you out a little bit when we told you that you were going to be between two Beethoven piano
Well, it's
concertos?
always the same thing I have. At first I was really excited, and then I sort of decided to sleep on it. And I thought, oh no, that's going to be really hard. But there's something about Beethoven for composers that is just, he is, I mean, clearly through the 19th and 20th century has been this looming force, but I think when one's invited to join the stage with him, and especially when one knows ahead of time, you just feel, I feel that it's my privilege, but it's really my responsibility to write the most eloquent music that I can possibly make. And so I'm really looking forward, and of course, working with, and getting to know the orchestra in so many ways since 2009, I can't imagine a more exciting opportunity for myself.
I don't want to raise the challenge bar unrealistically high, but obviously Beethoven is the master of us all. But there's something about, I think paradoxically, there's something about his music in its universality, in its ability to speak to all aspects of humanity, that makes it a really good lens through which to see almost anything. And I would venture to say that there's some composers who wouldn't necessarily combine with an as yet uncomposed work, but Beethoven, I'm very confident, will make it possible for your piece not to be swallowed up, not to be sandwiched between these monumental pieces of Beethoven bread, but actually provide the possibility of your work really getting a platform that will do it justice.
Well, I completely agree with that, and as I say, the challenge is mine, to accept, and I'm really looking forward to it. I think, and of course, thinking of the concert, having the second concerto and then the third, there's actually a story within those pieces musically, and so how do I create a? I haven't decided whether we're going to have a seamless flow between the two, or if I'm going to be doing something a little bit more of a jolt. I don't know if jolt's the right word, but there's a lot of ways artistically that one can kind of imagine approaching this context. So I'm tremendously excited, and of course, once again, thank you, Alan, and thank you to the New York Philharmonic for inviting me back. As we've said, I love what FEMA has said about old new music. There isn't a lot of it, but I like to think of Beethoven as being, it's old new music as well. So
Right.
everything was new once. So I'm tremendously excited, and thank you again to everyone. I'm very excited.
Well, if I may say, we're very, very pleased and proud. I hope that our giving you the chance earlier on helped you, but it's been great and gratifying to watch you go from the Cleveland Orchestra to here and there really on the top level, and you're absolutely totally deserve to be there.
Well, and I'll say again, I think, Alan, this is the kind of discussion that you were having at the beginning. I was in New York. These are the kind of New York opportunities. I think it is a testament to this. The crowdsourcing, if I could use that word, of what the opportunities are available and what things are going on in the city, and bringing the multi-dimensional talents of the orchestra, that they play new music exceptionally well, they play Beethoven exceptionally well, they play early music exceptionally well, and so there's this, coming together through music, and really your personal support of young composers like myself, but so many others, has meant so much to so many of us in the new music world, and we just couldn't, I'm very honored to be a certain kind of representative of that. But I also see on this program, on the season, that I'm so excited to be sharing the season with so many fantastic composers' works: Mark Turnage, Christopher Rouse, Julian Anderson. It's really a testament to your commitment to the music of our time that I'm so honored to be a part of, because I think it's at the highest level, and I think it's what New York wants and what it's deserving, and it's really very exciting.
Well, thank you for those kind words.
Try to live up to that.
Yeah, no, it's nice. It's nice to hear. I think Ed will support me on this. We have our idealistic conversations regularly, talking about ideas and how we'll bring them to life, and the hope is always that it will create this kind of spin-off resonance and take on an energy of its own, and it feels as if, at least to some degree, we're managing that, and it's nice to know that when we think theoretically in our planning sessions, that ultimately it actually makes a difference for musicians, but also for the people who are able to hear the music.
Well, speaking of, thanks, Sean, so much for
Yeah,
being
terrific.
here.
Thank you, Sean.
I think Sean's response to our stated desire to be responsive to what's going on around us and to have our ears pricked up to hear what's going on is really what led us to this idea of the NY Phil Biennial, which is another big, we consider one of the flagship projects of the 13-14 season. I don't even remember how this started.
This actually, Ed, long before he came to work at the New York Philharmonic, and I had a conversation in which the idea of a biennial for music came up. This was 5 years ago.
When you were first starting at the
Yeah,
Philharmonic,
long
right?
ago, and it was a kind of abstract idea, and it kind of is in a way still now. But the response to the biennials or the biennale that exist in the visual art world was that maybe we could do something in music for that, and we're biting the bullet and calling our first ever biennial, a biennial. The discussion,
Which kind of commits you
well,
to
there's a certain, admittedly, there's a certain hubris behind that. And, you know, we had a couple of discussions. The first was whether or not to call it a biennial or a biennale. That took up a lot of time.
That was very important, yes.
And then whether or not it should happen every 2 years or every 3 years. And we settled on every 2 years, well, for obvious reasons. But seriously, it's an ambitious idea. It's something that we expect and hope will become a real pillar on the New York music scene, not just the new music scene, but in the cultural life of New York City. And we're starting off, we'll have a dedicated press event, an announcement to really reveal full details, many of which are already in place, but we thought it deserved its own place. But the idea is to present every other year a kind of window into the state of music around the world. And there will be a lot of events, I think, considering that it's only 9 or 10 days long, but necessarily limited to the amount of time and resources. But we are calling on the help and the cooperation of quite a number of other New York-based institutions to help us in presenting what I think will be a really exciting time. Is there a video of this?
I think we do have a little teaser of the biennial
that we can.
It captures a little bit of the spirit of what we want to go after, if not the details.
Yeah, that'll give you an idea of the kind of visual language that we're going to be using to talk about this. But as we said, more later. Stay tuned.
I just want to add, because especially, but not only because we have a number of friends in the audience, the biennial has been such a gratifying opportunity to speak to our friends and colleagues throughout the world, really, but also especially here in New York. And the Orchestra of St. Luke's and the 92nd Street Y and the Metropolitan Museum of Art and the High School for Special Music and everyone who was listed on that video have just stepped up and said, yeah, we'd love to be a part of that and partner with you on that. And it's a true partnership, I think, not just creatively, but also in terms of investment of time and finances to make a very special event for the city of New York, where new music is the raison d'être, you know. We love this tagline, "Let's play," because that's basically what we're asking our audiences and our partners to do, is like, come play with us in the sandbox and let's see what happens. So I just want to thank, especially because they're here today, Hannah, Aria Goffman, and Catherine Cochran from the 92nd Street Y, and Charlie Hamlin from the Orchestra of St. Luke's, who have so wholeheartedly said, yes, we'd love to play with you.
I don't want to be too tantalizingly vague, but I think the fact that the New York Philharmonic is spearheading this initiative has really gotten people turned on to the idea. And as Ed mentioned, these partners who are going to be working with us are thrilled that the New York Philharmonic is taking this initiative. And I should add that publishers and composers around the world are jumping up and down, because the idea of doing something like this in New York City, curated by the New York Philharmonic, is, to my knowledge, unprecedented.
One of the reasons we're not announcing programming right now for the biennial is because the planning horizons for an institution like the New York Philharmonic and for all of our partners is usually so long. You hear about a premiere somewhere, maybe it's in Paris or Amsterdam or Tokyo or Shanghai, and you think, oh, God, it'd be great to do that piece. When's our first slot? And you think, oh, it's 3 years from now. And we're deliberately leaving the programming open for the biennial for a little while longer so that we can go out there and hear new pieces and say, okay, great, let's do that. Let's do that as soon as possible and bring it together in a festival and an immersive kind of experience.
Yeah, well, the idea is to be responsive in the way Ed has mentioned earlier in the session, but also current, which is why I think biennial is the right appellation for this, because it will be something that is reflecting what is going on now or within the last couple of years.
Yeah. And obviously advising us and guiding us and offering a moral compass to all of this is our composer in residence, Christopher Rouse, who will continue for his second year with us, and we're very happy he's here, and that we're very happy that we're playing so much of his music next year.
Chris, why don't you come join us on the stage? Welcome. When was the last time someone referred to the moral compass you provide?
That's a first, actually, I believe.
You're coming into your second year as composer in residence, and for me, I've felt very strongly the in residence part of your title. I feel that your taste is influencing mine and that of the choices we make. Has it meant anything to the actual composition that you're doing, or are the pieces you're writing, have they been in the pipeline or in your mind somewhere?
No, well, both pieces that I will have written for the Philharmonic by the end of next season are pieces I wouldn't have written otherwise. So they really weren't in the pipeline. And indeed, the concert opener, Prospero's Rooms, for this season is a work that I never actually even thought of until I got the residency here. It's in essence an overture to an opera that I will not ever compose. So
Never say never, Chris.
Oh, I'm saying never. And the new work for next season, which will be a symphony, is also something I had not contemplated writing, but am thrilled to have the chance to do a number 4 for this orchestra that I really love so much and have a very, very special place in my heart for.
I've had the good fortune to spend a lot of time with your music, and I've recorded 2 of your symphonies, and your work as a symphonist I think really is pretty special, because there are not that many composers who are even writing symphonies these days, let alone who are really able to write symphonies. So this 4th is going to be I'm very happy that you've agreed to do this for us. But I have to say that of all these projects, and I hope you know how much I love all of your music, the thing that I'm perhaps even most excited about is a work that has been sitting on my desk for years, and that hasn't received maybe as many performances as you might have liked from what I've understood from our conversations, but the Requiem. Can you tell us a little bit about this?
Well, it's received exactly
work?
1 performance so far, and I despaired of ever hearing it again, so I can't tell you how thrilled I am that the Philharmonic is going to be doing it this coming season. It is my magnum opus. It's a 90-minute work, and I really poured everything that I have in me into that piece. It has a very special place in my heart, so I can't tell you how excited I am that you will be doing it next season.
Well, when we first started talking about your coming on as composer in residence, this was in my mind, and it was a real strong hope of mine that we would actually make it happen. And it's a large-scale work, as Chris mentioned, but also huge forces, very difficult chorus part, and we'll be doing it in Carnegie Hall.
Right.
We should mention that we are going to be the opening night of Spring for Music Festival at Carnegie Hall, and we're delighted to be doing that and to be presenting Chris's Requiem in that context.
Great. Thank you so much, Chris.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Chris.
Ed already mentioned how important Alec Baldwin is to the Philharmonic family. The concerts near the beginning of the season, focusing on film music, really were truly inspired by conversations we had with Alec. Would you come up to the stage to tell us a little about it? Welcome. Hi.
Hi.
So,
well, as we said backstage, the Philharmonic has such a mission. You know, there's so many soloists, so many guest conductors, so much in the classical repertoire for them to perform, and obviously a pressure for this kind of programming. Who wouldn't want the Philharmonic? Alan, everyone involved in their work now to perform some program that they've written. And film programming, we've seen this done before, but I never dreamed that they would have the time to do that and would allow that to happen with all the other opportunities they have here and around the world. So I was very grateful. I wanted to say thank you to Alan and to Ed and to Matthew and everyone involved in doing this program, which of course revolves around taking a film that's a contemporary film, hopefully, or relatively contemporary. There's a short menu of them that have extended pieces from the classical repertoire, a film you think people can watch again as a work of art, like a piece of visual art. Kubrick's film 2001, A Space Odyssey, fits that bill. It's one of the few films I think that cineasts recognize you could watch it twice in a row, you know, and get different things out of it in each viewing, and a film that filmgoers go back to again and again, and to have that combination of a Kubrick's cinematic artistry and Alan and the Philharmonic to perform that live is just, it's like a dream come true. So thank you. And we promise no lip syncing. No lip syncing by the Philharmonic. I'm very proud from my affiliation with the Philharmonic that there is no lip syncing at the Philharmonic. It's all live.
We're not lip
concert.
syncing today.
We're not. No, never lip syncing at the Philharmonic.
One of the things as well that we were very excited about this project was the ability to work with Alec to think about the dialogue and the craft that happens between filmmaker and composer when they've worked together. And I know that we're planning some events within this
the Hitchcock
week.
program.
Yeah.
We're great. Who the panelists are now remain to be seen, but we want to make sure we have the best people and not just the biggest names, maybe people who fit both bills. Music, as everyone knows, music has, sometimes the music in the film is the best thing in the film. Sometimes the music is telling you how to feel more than the visual images in the film. You know, there's music is such an overpowering place in film. And where we're going to discuss Herman and his scores for Hitchcock and perform that as well. The Philharmonic will perform that as well. And that is Konstantin Katsopoulos, who's, we tried to, I'm told there's a bit of nepotism because his sister is in the cello section of the, so we thought, let's bring her brother in here. And he's with the Queen's Symphony. And so we have two wonderful programs. I mean, Herman, who's a pure film composer, and the classical repertoire that exists inside the Kubrick film.
Alec, don't you think that this is kind of a generative idea in the sense that we're barely scratching the surface this first time, and you know, I think this is something we have way more ideas than we have time for already in terms of programs that we'd like to do with film music. It seems like there's more Kubrick to do, there's modern composers and contemporary films, and I hope you'll continue to join us in brainstorming about these ideas for the future.
I'd love to.
Yeah.
If Alan's open to it.
No, I was just going to say that, it's not, again, you mentioned it's not a new idea to do film music, because a lot of great music has been composed for film and associated with film, and it's an easy way to build a program that is sure to be enjoyable. But to do it in this more thoughtful and in-depth way, and in a way that will hopefully help people understand more and discover more about the creative process behind choosing the music and composing the music for film, and what difference it makes for the experience you get as a observer or watcher of the film. I think that takes it to a whole nother level.
I think to watch a film and to have the Philharmonic there performing the score of that film, that's just an opportunity not to be missed. I've seen great film programs before, the Hollywood Bowl and so forth, and we talked about Mocheri and people that did that kind of programming in the past, and it was very successful. But to have the full heft of the Philharmonic behind that, it's going to be thrilling, not to be missed, I think.
Yeah.
Can I just take this chance to thank you, Alec, for all you do for the Philharmonic?
Oh, no,
Alec is, no, Alec, you thanked us, which is of course appreciated, but Alec is one of our most generous board members, and does so many things on so many levels, and to have someone of your star power and of your charisma cheering us on is extremely, well, we feel very lucky.
What I love, thank you. What I love is, as Alan said, it's his 5th year, and it has flown by. It's almost unimaginable how much it's flown by. But look at that picture. Look at how happy Alan looks in that picture. That's a great shot of you. That's a really fantastic shot. And it's all really come together so beautifully over the last couple of years, and congratulations to all of you. So thank you all very much.
Thanks,
Thank
Alec.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to be saying...
Why don't you come back, yeah.
We're going to be having a bit of a farewell next season, too, which we are sad about, but which we want to celebrate the person that we're saying goodbye to also. Alan, Glenn Dicterow has played a role in your life far before you became music director of the Philharmonic, hasn't he?
Well, far before the thought of being a conductor was even really a realistic one for me. I played for Glenn as a young violin student in master classes. My sister, Jennifer, studied with him and counts him as one of her most important teachers. I remember when he joined the orchestra and hearing him play literally just when he was starting out, and it was so exciting because my father was even on the committee that heard the audition, and I remember I have this memory of how excited he was about this incredible violinist who was coming in, and since then Glenn, I think it's no exaggeration to say that he has become the premier concertmaster in the symphonic world, and he's admired and held up as a real example of what a concertmaster can be. He's an incredible musician. He's an incredible orchestral force, and quite simply one of the greatest violinists in the world. And for the New York Philharmonic to have had him all these years has really in a very fundamental way shaped the orchestra. So his presence in the orchestra has been an absolutely essential ingredient in what people have come to know as the New York Philharmonic sound and the New York Philharmonic approach to music. So it's an incalculable loss in a certain way. But on the other hand, Glenn is a total mensch, and when he first floated this idea, I mean, I was stunned because everyone agrees Glenn is at the top of his game right now. So when he started talking about wanting to leave at the right time, I was surprised, and my first impulse was to beg him to stay. But he wants to go out. He follows the philosophy of better 5 years too early than 5 minutes too late. And you know, those of you who have heard Glenn play in the last period of time, his Scheherazade a few months ago was, you know, as good as you will ever hear it. Know that he is, you know, he's way more than 5 years too early, in a sense, as far as his playing goes. But on the other hand, as I said, I admire what he's doing, and he really is thinking about the continuity. And everyone knows that, as indispensable as some people feel at a given time, nobody stays forever, and he's going to help us in the transition. And I really salute him on every level.
I think we should hasten to add that Glenn is not retiring. That would be the wrong word. He's going on to a new professional chapter of his life and has a very exciting opportunity to be a professor at the USC Thornton School of Music, and to do more chamber work and solo work and so on. But we wanted to put together a season that really celebrated Glenn and gave our audiences an opportunity to hear him just play all the great solos in the Concertmaster repertoire and concertos and a recital and so on and so forth. Glenn couldn't be with us today, but we do have a message from him electronically.
"34 years is a long time for a concertmaster to stay anywhere, I feel, and it's been amazing, amazing 34 years. Every single one has been a challenge and interesting and inspiring. You know, no matter who's music director, it's just there's always something new and fantastic, you know, to stimulate one in that kind of a job. I feel very, very much part of the Philharmonic family, and it's not going to be easy for me to step down and all of a sudden a different time of life. It's going to be part of me for quite a while. They were trying to go through the entire solo Strauss repertoire for concertmasters. This is my last season. One of the first things I did when I came here in 1980 was sit down as concertmaster and on a Live from Lincoln Center, did Heldenleben on TV with Zubin, and you know, that's one way to get one's feet wet and you know, trial by fire. It's a very challenging work. You're basically playing amongst your colleagues, basically around 3 or 4 minutes, and all of a sudden the solo light goes on and you're out there by yourself. Strauss must have hated violinists because he wrote the most challenging and possibly hard licks for the violin, as people will see in the Heldenleben. There's also a Tchaikovsky Suite No. 3 in there, which also is enormous solo. So I think this is honoring me. There's also a recital coming up. I wanted to be in a collaboration with my final concert here with at least one or two of my colleagues. It turned out, of course, in Beethoven Triple, which I haven't done, Yefim Brofman is going to be the piano soloist, and I've worked with him several times. Lovely guy, and with Carter Bray. So I'm looking forward to that. It's one of my favorite pieces. With my colleagues from the orchestra, we'll be doing some chamber music, and I'll be doing some sonata work. So it's all in all, it's sort of a Concertmaster Fest for the last season, and you know, I'll be working hard for the last minute.
Yeah, Glenn is such a lovely guy, and there's, you know, you won't hear a bad word about him from anybody. And it reminds me, hearing him talk about Ein Heldenleben. Before I became music director, I conducted Heldenleben with the orchestra, and I remember distinctly a moment during the first performance. Near the end, there's the kind of apotheosis moment in the piece that the violin solo comes back, paired with a solo French horn. And I was standing on stage conducting and listening to Glenn immediately to my left, listening to Phil Myers sitting in front of me, and hearing these two legends and giants playing these solos as well as you'll ever want to hear them, and thinking, wow, this is the luckiest thing ever. Really, what a joy.
I think I should just say on behalf of everyone at the New York Philharmonic, I mean, we're so proud of the work that Glenn has done here, but we're equally proud of the opportunity with Alan and with the orchestra this next year to really honor him throughout the season. And I think it's terrific how creatively we worked with Glenn and with Ed, and to really find these great highlights throughout the year. It'll be a really special season, I think.
He's so modest. I think every time we came to him with an idea of something else we wanted to do, he said, "Really, it's not too much? Are you sure? You know, I don't want to be greedy here." And he was just lovely about it. And I should mention that the farewell recital that he's doing with some colleagues from the orchestra will be in partnership with the Juilliard School. And Juilliard, I failed to mention, will be participating in the biennial as well. And our ties to that great educational institution are very evident in this season.
Just a final word about Glenn. It's, you know, it's not, we're not trying to be too generous to him. It's entirely selfish. We just want to hear him play these things one more time.
Absolutely. Well, we've barely scratched the surface of the season. We just kind of hit a couple, you know, sort of the big ideas that we wanted to talk to you a little bit about. The full details of every program in the season are in your press packets, and as we've said, we will talk about the biennial and programming for our contact series in a separate announcement, but maybe this is a good time for us to open the floor up or look at Twitter, which seems to be rolling by.
Yeah, I urge you to pour through assiduously the materials that you've received, because there is an enormous amount of information. And, you know, if we could have talked about Benjamin Britten or Carl Nielsen, it would have been great. But it's all there, and I hope you enjoy what we've tried to give you a glimpse of today. I'm happy to take some questions. Maybe Matthew and Ed, if anybody has anything they would like to ask.
How much is the Philharmonic spending on the biennial, and how much have you raised so far, and what do you intend to raise?
Well, I don't have the exact budget figures. I would say, the biennial, like many of the big artistic projects that have come before that I mentioned earlier, like Philharmonic 360, these projects are a major investment, certainly artistically, but also financially. We've been very, very fortunate to have broad support for these projects before, and I'm very pleased that we have significant support again this coming year for the biennial. And I'm not going to tell you who.
Hi, Chris.
Hi. Oh. On the same topic then, if it's a different kind of programming that you're doing over those 10 days with many different events, will there be, just practically speaking, different ticket structure? I mean, will there be student things or free things or, package things? How do you see putting that together?
Well, the short answer is yes. And what we are looking at is concerts in Avery Fisher Hall, of course, but also in other locations, perhaps unexpected locations, here and there around the city. Yeah, I mean, the ticket prices is not my direct purview, but obviously will be appropriately. Absolutely.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, and there's been a real interest shown from schools and from, frankly, from musicians around the world who will plan to be here. Yeah. Because we're doing it.
Aside from the concerts, I'm sorry, Matthew.
That's all right.
Aside from the concerts themselves, we're hoping to put together a series of places, maybe post-concert, maybe, in the course of the festival, where audiences and composers and performers can come together to kind of process what we're hearing in those 10 days and share their reactions and feel like they're part of a festival, and not just attending performances, but also engaging in a dialogue. So I think that's going to be very important also.
I think we were really, this has a great curatorial feel that the way this project is developing, and it will absolutely be about broad access, providing an incredibly stimulating environment to hear the music that's presented, but to interact with each other about this music and that total experience. So there's more to come when we announce later this spring.
I joked with someone yesterday that one of the benefits of holding off the announcement of the full details of the biennial is that I'm sure we're going to get lots of suggestions on what we should do and how we should do it, and actually we welcome that. I think it can be part of the process and part of the, what did you say, Sean? The crowdsourcing of the first NY Phil biennial.
Yes.
Raphael?
I'd like to say it's a very interesting season, and I love the idea of a biennial opening up the possibilities for last-minute entries of new music especially, and bringing audiences in with surprises rather than having to plan long in advance. But I wanted to ask a completely different thing, to ask where the state of the discussions of changing the architecture of the hall are, and the renovations, and especially if you could address in context, one thing that occurred to me is the showing of 2001 begins with a very prominent organ part, and one of the great crimes of the original renovation was removal of the organ and substituting a for me, ineffective electronic organ. And also the confirmation in the recent news reports about the prior plans for the renovation involving removal of the top back balconies, which actually have incredibly fine sound. The sound back there makes it sound like one of the best halls in the world.
Well, I mean, that's a series of questions and thoughts. I will tell you, as was, I think, very accurately portrayed in a number of news outlets here not too long ago, there is work and thinking going on as part of a quiet planning phase together with the New York Philharmonic and with Lincoln Center. I would tell you that we are not at all talking about the level of specificity that you ask about today, so I can't really give you answers on those, but I can assure you that those types of questions and that type of thinking is actually very much, even in an early stage, those are things that are on our radar screen. What is germane to today, I think, is that when you're talking about the screening of films with live orchestra, when you're talking about adventurous projects like the biennial and some of the great things that have been done here under Alan's leadership, you really do want to think about a hall that has sort of expanded capability, that has the bedrock of what a great concert hall means, but also one that really does have these expanded capabilities. So that's where we are, is where we are in terms of that quiet planning phase.
I think we have time for one more question.
I'm going to give you two, though. For the 2001 film showing, are you using a chorus to do some of the Ligeti music?
We are.
All right, that's very exciting. You're doing 3 weeks of opening concerts. That's an opening month, really. What's the thinking behind calling it 3 weeks of opening concerts?
Well, it's shorter than 3 months of opening concerts.
And longer than 3 days.
Yeah. There's a kind of feeling of kicking off a season, and maybe it's as much a reflection of our thought process and our creative process in how we discussed combining pieces, and there were just too many ideas. It's an arbitrary cutoff point, but there is a feeling of celebration whenever you open a new season. And similarly, at the end of the season, we start to feel that we're winding up for the entire month before the season officially ends. And even then, it's an arbitrary cutoff point because the Philharmonic continues to play. But we hope that people come to hear us for all 3 weeks, or even one of the concerts if they can. And how we package the ideas is something that we talk about. But the thing that for me is important is that there are a lot of ideas, and that the New York Philharmonic is I think really staying true to this idea of completely providing fresh and exciting new musical experiences. And we want people to come all the time.
I do think that the 3 weeks of opening concerts is, it sets a tone for the season. We have our artists in residence. We have a young artist debut. We have a U.S. premiere. We have opening gala with Yo-Yo Ma. We have the film music week. It sets a tone for the variety of what the Philharmonic can do for New York audiences.
And it's probably too lofty, but it does also present a kind of philosophical picture of the bases we are trying to hit, the points, the sort of the beacons that are guiding us, and really will realize full play throughout the season.
Also, it's the Glengarry Glen Ross model of opening.
What's
That's right.
But we're just going to go for it.
That's right.
That's why we've got Alec Baldwin on the team. That's why you're here. Yeah.
Thank
Well,
you
we'll
so
be
much.
we'll be here to mingle a bit. Thank you all very much for coming.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.